Hi guys. We are going to be practicing how to make claims. Claims are what one deems to be true. A claim can be weak or can be strong. It's based on the evidence that you use to support it and the reasoning behind that evidence. So we're going to use CER, claim, evidence, and reasoning, to work on trying to find books that hook us, because your job is going to be to select books that you think you're going to finish from cover to cover and that you're going to remain engaged with for the 30 minutes that we'll be reading. So you need to think about yourself as a reader, think about what you like, and make good choices for yourself. So what I'm going to do first is share my screen. And I would like you on your iPad to find your Clever app. And if you don't have it, go to self-service and load it. It's just a Clever, C-L-E-V-E-R. Your login, when you get there, is literally your lunch number is your username, your lunch number is your password. That's why you don't want to ever share that lunch number with anyone else. And then you will see what I am seeing on my screen. You have a lot of different things that you can go to, and one of them is your ARC bookshelf. So if you haven't been leveled yet, you should maybe know your level from last year and get an idea for what books are right for you. I want you to try and test out and preview some different books and lots of different levels. We want these books to be just right for you. That means not too easy, but also not too difficult. So I'm looking at white level right now, and I'm kind of looking through. And I'm going to make some claims on these books based on myself and what I know about me as a reader. And I'm looking at like Earthworms, and I'm thinking, I can't even tell if that's fiction or nonfiction. And I know that I personally really like to read fiction books, especially realistic fiction. So if I want to get hooked in a book right away, I'm going to look for something that's a little more realistic. And the second book that's here is called If the Shoe Fits. And I see there's like a girl in the front. She looks real fancy. Totally not me at all. I'm very tomboyish. I don't think this is going to interest me. It kind of reminds me of like a Cinderella story, right? So I'm making all these claims that I'm deeming could be true based on the evidence that I'm seeing on the cover. And me as a reader, I know that it's not something I would like. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit more, and I see a boy with a basketball, and it's called Free Throw. Love basketball. I'm going to click on that to look at it a little closer. At the top here, you see you can fit one page to a screen. You can do a side by side. I'm going to give you an idea of what that looks like by clicking on the next couple of pages. That might be difficult for you to see on your iPad versus your computer screen if you have a computer. And then zoom to fit the slide, and then you see it's really big. So I kind of like the one page fit look. The negative about this way of viewing the book, unfortunately, is that I don't get to read the back. So I went to the very last page that they're able to share with me, and I can't read the back cover, and that usually has some good information about what the book's going to be about. So it's a little disappointing. So I'm not quite sure if I truly do like this book yet or if it is right for me. So I'm just going to click on a random page, and I'm going to read a little bit just to make sure that I understand the content, the sentence structure isn't too hard, and that I can kind of read the words that are on the page. So it starts with swoosh. I love that onomatopoeia. The ball landed in the net. 2 points already. The ref gave Cody the ball. Cody went out of bounds, and everyone ran into position. Cody passed the ball to Garrett. Garrett dribbled the ball to center court. Derek ran into the key. He was ready. But the Curran center stood between Derek and Garrett, so Garrett passed the ball to Dylan. Dylan faked left, and then Curran center moved towards him. Suddenly, Derek was open. Derek reached out, and Dylan passed him the ball. Boy, our author really assumed that I knew a lot about basketball. He talked about out of bounds, the ref, into position. He dribbled center court into the key. He was a center, faked left. I have to know what all of those words mean in order for me to kind of understand the book. Luckily, I do have a lot of background knowledge about basketball, so those words didn't trip me up. I knew what they meant. I was able to read this fluently. This might actually be a little easy for me, but I kind of like it. So I'm going to stick with it. And I'm going to start on page 1 and continue on and see if I can persevere through this text. So as you can see, I kind of talked through turning away some books right off the bat because of how they looked. Maybe as I read some of them a little more, I would have seen that some of the vocabulary was a little difficult, so it may have made me put it down right away. But now that I found something I'm interested in, I'm going to go ahead and start reading this and see if I like it. So CER is going to be used a lot this year in having discussions and in writing. So our claim, that's the short answer to the question. We want to make sure we use part of the question, and it should only just answer that short question. So it is a short answer, and it should be in a complete sentence. We then provide our evidence. Your evidence, everybody should be able to find your evidence. It should come from the text. So you could see that there was a picture of the girl dressed fancy. You could see that, or hear from me as I was reading, that I didn't have any fluency issues. So this is all evidence to prove that that book was either good or not good for me. And then your reasoning. I know that I like books about sports. I know that I can handle it. I know I have background in it. And that helps me to link back to the claim that I think that sports book was perfect for me. Okay? So we're going to be using this a lot this year, and you're going to be using it in your other classes. If you're in science, your evidence might come from a lab that you do, your data from the lab. So this might be a resource that you want to put in your resource part of your Schoology, so you can use it in other classes as well. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing and I'm coming back. So we want to make some other claims about our informational text that we are going to be reading. So our informational text is called We Are the Ship. You see it here in front of you. And if you have your slide pulled up too, you will see that I have a CER there for the We Are Ship. And I talked about, pull my information up in front of me while you have it in front of you. We want to try to make as many claims as we can by looking at the cover and reading a little bit together. So as I look at the cover of this book, I believe it's going to be amazing. That's my claim. People could say something different, right? That's why we have to be able to support it to make it a strong claim. All right. So I see on the front cover that it has won 3 awards. That should say something to you, right? One of them is actually gold. I know that gold is first place, right? And one of them actually says the word winner on it. If you win, you have to be pretty good, right? Don't you think experts are the ones who give books these medals, right? It's not just Joe Schmo down the street giving a medal out, right? It's people who know how to evaluate text. So I think this book must be good. I'm linking it back to my claim. All right. I also noticed that it says the story of Negro League baseball. I don't know about you, but that word makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable, right? It's not a word that I use every day because to me, it has a negative connotation and I would never use it to talk about anybody. So I wonder if there's a lot of kind of uncomfortable topics about race in this book. Obviously, we have a black male on the front, a baseball player. So if this is about Negro League baseball, it's from back in the day when there was probably segregation. So there's probably going to be some pretty controversial racial topics in here as well. All right, do you think that that's a strong claim too? Well, let's look at the first chapter and let's see if we can make any claims. So moving to the first chapter, I noticed that it says first inning. How cool. So this is organized, each chapter is organized by innings, which is just like baseball. So this must be really organized like baseball is. So the first paragraph reads, seems like we've been playing baseball for a mighty long time, at least as long as we've been free. Baseball's the best game there ever was. It's a beautifully designed game that requires a quick wit, a strong body, and a cool head. It kind of seems like this is a first person account. I wonder if Kadir Nelson actually was a player, or is he writing, did he get information and is writing it as if he was there, right? I got the pronoun we have been playing. He's writing it as if it's first person, and that kind of makes it more interesting for me as a reader, because it makes me feel like I'm like actually there and experiencing it with them, and that's kind of cool for me. I like that. They say baseball was invented by a fellow named Abner Doubleday in Cooperstown, New York, back in the middle 1800s. But that is just another tall tale, because no one really knows for sure. But one thing is for sure. Soon after that, you could find a baseball game being played just about everywhere in this grand old country of ours, particularly in the big cities like New York and Chicago. People of all types love to play and watch the game. Irish, Italian, German, Cuban, Puerto Rican, and African. But back then, we were called Negro or colored. Every neighborhood and every town had a team, and they would all play one another. Before long, there were professional teams and organized leagues. So I noticed too, they had the apostrophe cause. So for because, they took out the BE. And then grand old, with the apostrophe, they took out the D, country of ours. So this is also written kind of like this person is talking. And again, that's that idea of first person account. And I personally really like that. So it's written as if someone is, speaking to me. In the mid 1860s, most professional baseball teams had only white ball players. There were a number of Negroes who did play, though they weren't treated any better than most Negroes in the country at the time. Truth is, those poor fellows were treated downright disgracefully. They were called just about every horrible name in the book, and then some. Several teams wouldn't play another team if it had a Negro on the roster, and in some states, Negroes weren't allowed to play at all. When we did play, we got the wrong direction from our manager and were targets for opposing pitchers and base runners, which was a dangerous thing, because back in those days, no one wore any type of protective gear, not even the catcher. Well, that was until Bud Fowler, the first Negro to play professional baseball, came along. Too many times he was forced to leave the field on crutches after being spiked by a base runner. Now, this was a terrible thing, but some good came out of it. His scarred shins gave him the idea to attach wooden staves from the barrel to his legs for protection. They were the first shin guards and the first protective gear in baseball. They just about saved his legs and his baseball career, or what was left of it anyway. And don't you know that those white fellows tried like the dickens to break his shin guards? It just gave them a little more ambition to slide feet first when a Negro was covering the base. So it sounds like it's going to have a lot of it's going to compare and contrast a lot between the white players and the Negro players in the leagues. But it also sounds like it's going to talk about the contributions that the Negro players had to baseball in general, right? So we hear that they were talking about shin guards. Protective gear was finally kind of introduced because of what the Negro players had went through. So you can see here too that there are some really cool pictures of some of the players that were participating at the time. So I'm going to pause there for a moment. I do think that this is going to be a pretty interesting book for me. I know that I like books about sports. It's also interesting because it's true history. And I like the fact that I get to learn what a group of people had to go through and persevere through in order to get where they are today, and kind of gain some respect for that, as well as hear about all the contributions that they were able to give. So I'm kind of excited to read that book further and see what it's about. I'm going to give you a couple minutes. Did you come up with some other claims? Is there any other claims that you would like to make about this book? What do you think about it? What evidence would you use to provide that you heard today? And then in Reader's Workshop today, you're going to get to preview a bunch of books and make some decisions on what you want, which book hooked you the most, what you want to persevere through next. Thank you.